Okay, folks, we're going to start letting in our next round of speakers, and this one is a doozy, so buckle up. I hope you're excited because I sure am. Get ready. I think we got a title card we can pull up now. Meet the LGBTQIA founders, Demetrius Curry, James Silva, and Ashleigh Wilson. Now, I got a question for you. Are you an LGBTQIA plus founder looking to get your startup off the ground? Then you will want to stay tuned for this roundtable discussion produced in partnership with StartOut. Their mission is to increase the number, diversity, and impact of LGBTQIA plus entrepreneurs and amplify their stories to drive the economic empowerment of the community. Now, as I mentioned earlier, for this discussion, we'll be joined by Demetrius Curry, CEO and founder of College Cash. Also joining us is James Silva, CEO of ConciergeBot, and Ashleigh Wilson, founder and CEO of AuditMate, who will be discussing how they started their own businesses and the lessons they learned along the way. Now, this talk will be moderated by our very own PowerToFly Director of Marketing and Community, Lauren Hagerty, and all questions are welcome. Okay, so I think we are good to let everybody in here.
Yay, thank you, Hunter.
Thank you, Lauren.
We'll take it from here. Well, I'm so excited to be here. And selfishly, I think this is probably one of the most exciting conversations of the day. I love hearing from founders and people who have created just really unique and interesting products and essentially companies around those products. So thank you so much to everyone for being here. If you want to turn your cameras on, we can get started. There we go. We're waiting for James. Hi. Okay, awesome. We are good. So I know Hunter just gave some really great introductions, a little bit about what y'all do, but I want to dive in just a little bit deeper to set the stage for this conversation. So I want to start by learning a little more about you. So you individually, and then of course your startup, and then a little bit more about how you learned about StartOut. So who would like to kick us off first? I know I gave you a lot of instructions. All right, James, we'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Happy to be here. Calling from San Francisco. So my name is James Silva. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the founder and CEO of ConciergeBot, an AI virtual concierge for travel and hospitality that provides automated and contactless assistance for routine guest inquiries over SMS, WhatsApp, and voice. And I'm an alumnus of the StartOut Growth Lab, which is an accelerator for LGBTQIA plus entrepreneurs, which was a great experience for me, really got me my startup going at the time. Prior to founding ConciergeBot, I graduated from Stanford with a bachelor's degree in computer science. And I've been working as a software engineer and product manager for some time at companies like eBay, Expedia, and Adobe. And while I was at eBay, I was the chair of the local LGBTQAI plus diversity employee group at eBay and led their first march in San Francisco Pride in 2011. Happy to speak with you all.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, James. And let's pass it over to Ashleigh next.
Hi, I'm Ashleigh Wilson. I'm the founder of AuditMate. We are the first ever elevator and escalator auditing software and management company, to which I get a lot of head tilts. I'm a self-proclaimed elevator baby. I was raised in the industry, and I couldn't help but notice that skyrocketing profits were a direct result of contract confusion and elevator companies simply not doing their jobs. I am a queer human based in San Francisco. I am also a Growth Lab alumni and sit on the programming board of StartOut. Thank you for having me.
Ashleigh, I don't know if Rob knew this when he put this panel together, but I'm also an elevator baby. So
yeah.
Connect on that. I know not many people are very immersed in the industry, but all of your connections I also have. So that was really
amazing. Cool. I love that.
Yeah. So last but not least, Demetrius, let's kick it over to you.
Greatly appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. Just pleased to be here. I'm Demetrius Curry, founder of College Cash. College Cash is a platform that uses everyday behavior to help reduce student loan debt in different aspects, from posting pictures, engaging with brands, to engaging with gig economy platforms, to have tips go towards reducing student loan debt. And not just debt that's accumulated, but we also are able to help offset future student loan debt. So think of it as a digital 529 program that's based around everyday behavior. My background is, let's just say, non-traditional. Originally from Chicago, I spent my entire high school career homeless and in group homes, dropped out of high school, went to the Marines, got out the Marines, ended up going back to school, getting my GED, going to college, and working in finance and advertising. And so that was pretty much the basis and genesis of what I built, because I wanted to try to have something that can really have everyday people not change behavior, but have a different benefit from what they're already doing. So that's what we do, and it's truly a pleasure to be here.
I can't wait. Oh, go ahead.
I'm Growth Lab alumni as well. Just graduated about a month and a half ago from the last cohort. So
Nice. That's amazing. And I also downloaded the app. So I have a lot of questions myself on how to get in there. So this is super exciting. Again, selfishly, I love learning and hearing from all of your different perspectives and journeys. And I think that's what makes this conversation so unique, is the journey is different than many entrepreneurs, or what one would consider maybe the traditional entrepreneurial experience. So let's kind of start with that. The elephant question in the room: what inspired you to start your own business? And the follow-up questions that I have, I think we could talk about for hours and hours in and of themselves. But one, how do you create a mission-driven and values-driven business? And how did being part of the LGBTQIA plus community impact your approach to launching your company or your overall vision? So I know there's a lot there. So I don't know if there's anyone that wants to tackle that first, but Demetrius?
Yeah, sure. So here's an interesting little footnote to this, and it ties in. Actually, being part of Growth Lab and just joining StartOut last August, that was my first time publicly coming out. So this was an entirely new experience. But however, I will say that everything that has led me to this point, as far as being African-American founder, as far as being founder of the LGBTQIA plus, it's all given us a strength. It gave me a strength, because we've already put up with so much that nowadays when you start a company, hearing no is nothing, because you've already faced all kind of adversity to this point. So I really would say that to that point, it toughened us. It made us more resolved, because you have to have a focus just in life to be able to get through this. But I would say for me individually, it helped me reconcile who I really am. And you need to know who you are to have a mission-driven company, and even to be a founder. It makes you reassess, why am I doing this? And who is the person sitting in this chair? So yeah, that's what being a part of this has done for me as a founder. It gave me a lot of resolve and strength.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. I completely agree. Being in the elevator industry, which is very white and very male, being who I was in itself is a struggle, right? And so I think being mission driven was something that was sort of, it just was, right? It wasn't like, I'm going to be mission driven. It's like showing up as who I am every day is so important to me that I want everyone to feel that way, right? Like, I'm not willing to go back to an environment that I have to hide who I am. So like being authentic, being heart-centered, creating space for people that are different from me, different from, the status quo, is so inherently important. It's just true to who I am that I don't see another way. So like, if that makes me mission driven, great. But that wasn't the intent. The intent was to be able to come to work as I am, and that all of my coworkers can too.
And I'll definitely agree with Ashleigh and Demetrius as well. I think that bringing yourself and being authentic and being who you are is an important part of leadership. And I think that that's where just being involved in the LGBTQIA plus community has been so great. So for myself, like in my sort of like industry experience, like that was something that I always wanted to be. That I was always that person who led the ERGs, the employee resource groups, and was out there and just the community, excuse me, the community that you find in that space is so valuable. And so I wanted to bring that into my entrepreneurial experience. I definitely wanted to, and that's where StartOut came in, is that it was really offered me a way to that continuation of that community, that authenticity. And I think that that's something that just becomes a part of your mission, I think, just by being involved in communities, particularly underserved communities, and finding that support, because it is such a long haul. Entrepreneurship is very hard. And so you need that support. You need to feel like you can be yourself, that you can talk to people, and having that camaraderie and that support, I think, from the StartOut Growth Lab was really valuable in getting started. Absolutely.
And if you don't mind, James, you brought up a great point, and Lauren, I hope you don't mind. It's sort of like I told somebody else in the process of this. It's almost when you're not able to be yourself, you almost feel schizophrenic in a way. And it's because you have to have so many different personas, especially when you go from the fact of me being African-American, then me being a Marine Corps veteran, and then being a founder, and then being non-traditional in my background. Imposter syndrome is something that a lot of founders suffer from as it is. But when you can't really be yourself and reconcile and put all the pieces together, you're suffering from imposter syndrome on multiple levels. And so my best analogy is being part of StartOut and Growth Lab caused me to be able to go, hey, look, these are some conversations I need to have with some people who matter, but it also is necessary for me. So I kind of use it as I was able to pull all the pieces together like the old school cartoon Voltron and form one gigantic, fantastic CEO and founder. And I feel since then I've been unstoppable.
I love that. And I think, the commonality I'm hearing between all of your answers, and of course, being in, an HR recruiting company, it really requires a founder like yourselves to kind of kickstart that diversity, equity, and inclusion hiring as the company grows. So it seems like, making a company where you yourself felt comfortable, a product that, really spoke to your community or the customer at hand and made them feel included. That's the best recipe for creating a culture of inclusivity, which is, everything right now. So that's so wonderful to hear from all of you. And we kind of glossed over the first part of the question, and probably my fault for asking too many, but I do want to know, was there something specifically that inspired you to make each of your companies? Because they are so different, even coming from that same accelerator. So was there one thing that did inspire you? James, I'll pass to you.
Sure. So for my product for ConciergeBot, really I was inspired by my experiences as an Airbnb host in Palm Springs. So I own a vacation home there, and I got frequently asked questions from guests about what time was checkout, what was the door code, where can I go grab coffee, and I wanted to build a virtual assistant that could answer those questions for them while they're while I'm away, or maybe they don't want to wait for me to get back to them. And so that was sort of the basis for that. For the product, I wanted to build something that I could relate to as a user. And so that was sort of how I got started. From a concept standpoint, I wanted to apply my software engineering and product management experience towards something that was relatable to me, that I thought that if I need this, other people might need it too. I think in terms of timing, I think that I always my fellow panelists mentioned talking about imposter syndrome. I think I always felt like I needed a little more work experience, or I needed a little more clout before I could go out and do it. And I realized that there's no perfect time to do it, and I have to really kind of face those challenges head on, and that's where community comes in. And I think that I had reached a point in my career where I felt like, okay, I can either go this route and kind of stay in this comfortable lane, or I can do what really follow my heart and do something that I really care about and take that risk. And I think that there's always that hesitancy to take risk, but I wanted to err on that side. And so it was really around the time when there's a confluence of things like there was a sort of an inflection point in my career, and then I took a little bit of a sabbatical from work. I just really thought about, what do I want to do? I kind of played around prototyping, just talking to people, having conversations, and traveling, and then thinking about just kind of like giving myself space to be creative really helped me. But I think that it was really just having the idea based on my own experiences, and then really just kind of accepting, like, this is the time. There's no such thing as a perfect time, and then just going for it.
Love that. Ashleigh, I saw you unmute next.
Yeah, for me, I thought that I would be the first female CEO of one of the major elevator corporations, and eventually the job just got really hard in multiple ways. On one hand, customers didn't understand their contracts. They didn't understand what they were buying, and so they didn't understand how they were being taken advantage of. And not only speaking, but also teaching people how to speak in a way that is vague, that kind of like obscures the truth, was something that got heavier and heavier and heavier. And then also being a woman and being queer and being treated differently was something that I got used to. But then when I saw another woman on my team, someone that actually worked directly for me, get the same treatment that I had gotten, it hit me really, really hard. It was like, hurt me, sure, but hurt someone else on my team, like, now that's not okay. And that was a harsh reality for me, that it was like, wait, why is it okay that I'm treated this way? And this all came to a boiling point that I had presented a research project on portfolio protection, actually, to all the CEOs in North and South America. And one of the CEOs looked at me and said, yeah, Ashleigh, that's great. Empathy could be a great competitive advantage. And I was like, it's not a competitive advantage. This isn't something we commodify. And I basically just threw my hands in the air and walked away, right? Like, I was like, I can't change this industry from the inside. It's not possible, and I'm going to kill myself trying. Like, even if I got up to the position of CEO in the US, then what? I'm still reporting to global, and I'm still a part of an industry that's an oligopoly. And so I left. I had no idea what was next. And I took about 8 months off before the idea for AuditMate just like hit me like a ton of bricks. And at that point, I decided you don't slay dinosaurs from the inside, only from the outside. So.
Well said. Thank you, Ashleigh.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really got to piggyback off. I mean, the other panelists are bringing up such great points. Mine is a little bit interesting because I honestly got tired of hearing, because I was in corporate America. I worked on Wall Street, worked on Madison Avenue, and I was doing wealth management. And I got tired so many times of hearing, oh man, Demetrius, you're doing such a great job. You brought this into the company, or you did this. Man, you should actually do this. Well, wait a minute. You're right. I probably should, because no matter how good I do, I'm only going to earn what this position is worth, not what I'm worth. And so I was having that same kind of epiphany. At the same time, I was discussing student loan debt with my daughter. And it was funny because I was talking about how there was nothing that could use what she was actually doing, which was taking pictures, to pull down the student loan debt. And so when I started researching it, it hit me. If you don't find it, build it. Because if not you, then who? And so it took a minute. It really did, because that imposter syndrome is real in the beginning. When you're first thinking about starting it, the first thing is like, yeah, I can do it. Then that voice in the back of your head, but are you sure you can? And so you have to get over that bridge. And I just decided to just step out, because it needed to be done. And I realized that I was uniquely positioned to look at it from a perspective of, for lack of a better term, broke folks, the common folks, the ones that nobody really builds platforms for. And so having that viewpoint and that kind of street level, ground level view, I knew was what was going to uniquely position me to be able to do this and be successful at it. And in the course of that, I actually had a little poem that I put on the wall in my office in the beginning. It said, "Roses are red, violets are blue. Tell an entrepreneur no and watch what the hell they do." And so,
oh my gosh.
and so that I kind of live by that. So yeah, that's what got me started.
I have chills. What a great quote. I hope our quote grabbers grab that. If not, we'll have to go back to the recording. But this kind of in line with what y'all are saying and talking about the imposter syndrome. You know, if you three successful founders have imposter syndrome, then I mean, I'm sure every single person that's watching this conversation right now with a good idea is facing the same thing. So let's talk about some of the resources that you utilized during your time with StartOut. You know, what really helped you kind of cross that bridge, get over the imposter syndrome, even just for a little bit? What really helped you take your idea, your company, anything that you were struggling with to the next level?
If you don't mind, I'll go first on that one, because my answer is going to be all the resources, like literally all the resources. I have never, and it's so weird because coming into it, like I said, I had never publicly been out before. And so coming into it, I was already kind of hesitant because, you know, I was the only African-American. I'm just now coming out. I'm like, what's this? And everybody seemed like was so more successful in my cohort than me. So I'm like, but one of the best things about StartOut and Growth Lab is they never treated you like you were any level different, be it Series A, pre-seed, idea. And the best advice that I got was I got checked by Chris Davidson. I'll say him by name, Chris. Chris checked me and was like, you need to embrace being the badass that you are. And so the resources were learning how to ask for help and take help. And the resources of helping, they created a community where you felt so welcome that that was a huge resource in itself, because it gave you motivation, it gave you camaraderie, it gave you a safe place to vent, to just snap out some weeks, and then a great place to come up with answers. So that would be my answer on that one.
I couldn't agree more. Like, leverage, utilize, exploit any resource that you possibly can. Like, it's like, I will absolutely use the white men in my life to get into a room, right? Like, do what you have to do to get invited in, right? Like, it's not going to get you home, but if it can get you in the door and you can like steal a seat at the table, like, absolutely do it. So like, speaking events, free webinars, you know, StartOut has gotten me ticket to events that I would never be able to afford on my own, right? Like the mentorship, the free office hours, like anything that you can get, take it. Take the interview, take the webinar, take the time for a chat on the phone. And I also completely agree that StartOut has been an amazing resource for companionship, right? Like I was in the cohort when COVID happened. So we got to the office for about 10 days before everybody got sent home. And I'm in prop tech, right? So as I'm launching my startup to the world, everybody leaves buildings. No one's even in buildings anymore. So it was a terrible time to launch a prop tech startup, but because of Growth Lab and because of Chris, I was able to keep going and keep money in the bank and keep, know when the right time is to do things, know that you are on the right track. I can't believe the amount of times that imposter syndrome has snuck up on me, because you're working at home alone normally. And then all of a sudden you talk to another founder, you talk to another resource, and you get to baseline yourself against everyone else. And you're like, oh, I actually do know what I'm doing. I'm really not as far behind as I thought I was. Like, okay. And it allows you to exhale, right? And like find some friendship. So anything that you can get, if anyone that's watching right now needs to call me, I will lend you some credibility. Like I'm sure the other panelists on the call would feel the same. Like call me, call Chris, call anyone, like use whatever you can get.
I have a similar, very similar experiences with StartOut and the Growth Lab. So when I applied, I didn't feel ready to apply. I just had a prototype. I was very early, and but a mentor / friend of mine encouraged me to apply, and I got accepted. And so that was really the beginning of me sort of taking my concept seriously as a company, starting to really, I guess, get past that imposter syndrome of feeling like, well, I'm not ready. I think that's what I always said to myself. Well, it's not the right time, or it's too early to talk to people. And I think that StartOut really got me talking to potential mentors, potential investors, potential clients, and even having those conversations, you realize that you know more than you think, and that other people are also feeling the same way you are, but yet they're going out there and still giving their spiels and getting in front of people. So yeah, StartOut has been great for getting me in the room, like Ashleigh mentioned. And yeah, Chris Davidson's great. He will tell it like it is, and that's he's definitely like a tough love mentor, and that is really great. One of my great experiences I had with StartOut was when the pandemic hit. Obviously, my market, which is travel and hospitality, was down. And Chris made an intro for me to another Growth Lab company that was in the sort of healthcare medical space. And I built a voice-based dispatcher app, basically like took my technology and applied it to a different market for them. And that was able to get me through the pandemic. And now that, so now that the travel and hospitality market is back, I'm focused on that, but I also know that my product has potential beyond that. And that was something that I don't think I would have gotten that exposure without StartOut. So it's been an incredible resource, and it's one of those things as the community grows, as they have more founder alumni. I was only in the second group, so we were a pretty small alumni community, and it's great to see it grow with folks like Ashleigh and Demetrius. It's been really great. So I think, again, just seeking out community, I think, is really important, and having conversations with people in your network is a good way to sort of combat that imposter syndrome. You need those people who reinforce you and are supportive.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say one. I'm sorry. Last one is accountability. We talk about the resources, and for us being solo founders, and like Ashleigh was saying and James was saying, being at home, we can lie to ourselves. We do this quite well sometimes. No, I'm doing great. The reality is you're not. The accountability is also an untapped resource of StartOut and Growth Lab, because you're held accountable to the point that you're like, no, I'm doing great. And Chris, Ryan, some other people have checked me like, okay, no, you're not. So what's really going on? And forces you to actually address some of the things that benefit you so much in growing your company and scaling. And my favorite thing to say is, and this is exactly how I feel, I came into StartOut being a founder. I left out of Growth Lab being a CEO, and that's a huge transition. So that's also another resource that I think we skip over sometimes, which is accountability.
Yeah, I was going to say, most accelerators and programs that help you launch your startup, at least the vibe that I've gotten has been, it's super competitive. You're competing with the same people for resources and, seats at the table, to your point, Ashleigh, all of these things. But from what y'all are sharing, it definitely seems like this community in particular is more of a support network where you are encouraged and, free to share how you really feel. From each of your stories, I'm getting that kind of sense of camaraderie, which I personally have not heard from any of the other groups similar to yours, which is amazing and a huge, huge plus to StartOut. So, talking about all the positives of the StartOut experience, I'd love to know if y'all could share a memorable, positive experience you've had, or probably the most positive or memorable experience launching your startup. And Demetrius, I'm seeing you chuckle to yourself, so I'm going to make you share.
Okay, so you have to understand that, as I said, before starting Growth Lab, I had never publicly come out. So part of my initial memorable experience was having to explain to everybody the program I was in and why I was in it. And so conversations went from, my family to business partners, business associates. And so all that went really well. So I was laughing at that because those were memorable, because the response of non-responses, which was more like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's it. Like I've been worried all these years about nothing. But I think probably one of the most memorable experiences, I was pitching a VC, and this is during Growth Lab. I'm pitching a VC, and I was explaining everything else, and they were like, "Yeah, great." And I was like, "And I'm, in Growth Lab," and they were like, "Oh, so is there an LGBTQ angle to this?" I was like, "Unless you consider me an angle, no, it would be me." And they were just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I was just thinking, like, the fact that what made it memorable with me is 8 months ago, I could have never had that conversation and been able to laugh about it. But it's just everything overall. The entire experience has been memorable, from the people to the feedback to the opportunities, like Ashleigh was talking about. They paired me up with mentors that I would have never been able to reach prior to this. Visa, introductions to, all these other multinational brands where people are looking at you like, okay, I heard you have something cool. What's up? So yeah, all of that.
Yeah, there's so many memorable experiences. I was trying to think about what to share. I guess I'll share a recent one. Now that one of the things that I do with StartOut now that I'm an alum is I could come back and I give a talk on search engine optimization, which is like my pre sort of startup founder background, working on getting more organic search engine traffic to websites. So I did for eBay and Adobe, and I was able to actually use that to create an opportunity for my company. So I was contacted by this accelerator program in Portugal, and they pair startups in the hospitality space with travel and vacation rental management companies in the country and in the region. So we got invited to pitch to startups to these companies. And again, there was a little bit of imposter syndrome, but I just kind of had to feel like, okay, this is the right thing to do. And the programming, the pitch events were on European time. So I'm in California on the West Coast. So I was making pitches at 2, 3 in the morning, my time, taking 5-hour energy drinks just to stay up, and then actually present a pilot proposal to each company. And we ended up walking away with 4 pilots. And there's a demo, we're participating in a demo day next week. And I'm actually flying to Portugal in person to do the demo day. So I'm going to be there next week. So it's going to be, getting there is going to be a challenge, but and it's a little nervous, but I think it'll be, but it's been great. It's just sort of like seeing the culmination, and you think about those wins, they make you appreciate all the hard times and all of the late nights or the struggles or the disappointments or the how am I going to pay, the moments where how am I going to pay for this or how am I going to get through this? Those wins make it worth it. And so I think as an entrepreneur, you have to celebrate those moments and those wins too, because it's a lot of ups and downs, but those moments make it worth it. And so that was really like that experience has made this journey, has been just a really rewarding moment.
We're celebrating with you, James. That's awesome. And Ashleigh, what about you?
I'm going to share a story that kind of ties in with what we were speaking about before. So when I was in our first investment round and pitching this idea to mostly a room full of retired elevator guys, and I'm non-technical, right? I have no technology background. My co-founder had led technology teams, but has never been a CTO. And there came a moment that she felt in over her head. And she was like, I can't be a CTO. I'm definitely on board, but like, I can't do this. And at that moment, I was like, crap, we're pitching in like days. What do I do? And I went on LinkedIn, and we're entirely based on Salesforce. And I was just like cruising through executive profiles on LinkedIn. I found a woman who was a senior vice president of Salesforce for years. And I cold emailed her out of nowhere and just was like, look, I saw that 2 years ago, you led a pitch about underrepresented founders, non-technical. Here's the position I'm in. Can we chat? And she wrote me back within 15 minutes and was like, hey, we can have conversations. I'll draw you up some architecture. I'll sit in on your investor call. And this is actually where I got that line. She goes, I'll lend you some credibility so that you can get the investment you need. I know you can do it. You don't even need my help, but you need someone with a title. And without her, I would have never had the money to start. And for her, it was like 2 hours of her time, right? And so that's one of those really critical moments that I'll carry with me forever. And I will always return that favor when the time comes for me, because it's so pivotal just to like look back and help out, and, you know, put your name on something can change the entire direction of someone's life.
Chills again. I knew this was going to be the conversation for everyone to watch. Y'all are incredible. And what a fantastic and inspiring story. Wow. I don't know how we're going to pivot to this next conversation or this next question, which is about the mistakes, because we can't talk about the positives if we didn't talk about the mistakes. And in my opinion, you know, that's the best part, because that's where we all learn and grow and become better at what we do. So let's talk about it. You know, what were some of the early mistakes that you made along the way, things that you wish you could have done differently? And more importantly, how did you recover? What did you do to make up for that or change or grow? And I'm seeing everyone's faces and nodding in agreement. So I'm not sure who wants to take it away to start.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in on that one too. Wow, I think we're all laughing for the same reason, which is, gee, which one should I pick? So it's, oh gosh, I would say one of the biggest mistakes, looking back in retrospect, it's two parts. One, not having enough faith in myself, and second guessing a lot of things because you don't want to do things wrong. And so you tend to overthink or second guess, and guess what? You probably going to do it wrong anyway. Okay, that's fine. Life happens. But that's what you need to learn. So embracing that whole, okay, I'm gonna fail, but I'm gonna fail forward. I never really understood that saying until later on in my founder journey, which was, if you fail at something, you make a mistake, take it as a learning lesson, keep going. Don't even be scared to fail, because it's going to happen regardless of what you do. And I think the other one is not asking for assistance earlier, not searching out community, not searching out tribe, not relying on the people around me, because you have this unwavering desire. I think everybody can agree with me on this, especially as founders coming from, you know, underestimated backgrounds, be it race, be it gender, be it identity. We have a need to prove ourselves. I'm just as good as everybody else. And in the course of that, sometimes we forget to ask for help and we make mistakes. So my biggest one, I'll say it, I messed up pretty much every legal document I had in the beginning of trying to do this thing, because I was going off examples online and this and that. And to the point that my attorneys, when they were fixing everything, were like, oh, we don't even know how you got this far. So, you know, we make them. But you know what? The easiest thing to solve all that is reach out to resources. Like Ashleigh said, James has said, you know, we're here. Your community is here. The same reasons that whoever's watching this got the invite and the link to watch that, that means guess what? You have resources. Somebody believes in you. Somebody knows you can do it. So reach out early. That will help your trajectory. It won't stop every mistake, but it will lessen the blow of the ones you make.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. I have two things that I tell my team all the time. And one is F it up fast, like go do it, hurry up. And the other is decisions are just information. The decision gives you information to inform the next decision. So nothing is permanent. They don't actually matter. If you make a decision and it's the wrong decision, you now know what you need to do. So go do it, right? I think the biggest mistake that I made was not making decisions fast enough. If I know the truth internally and I don't act upon that out of fear, and it's usually due to a scarcity mentality in some way or another, right? Like I'll never be able to find another technology team that's good enough, or, you know, this mediocrity will do, it's okay, I can just deal with it, I won't find any better, or I'm not good enough, or whatever the like little, I say that she's a teenage girl in the back of my head that likes to talk crap to me all the time. That's my visualization of it. But it's usually just not a quick enough decision. So for me, recovering has been trusting my gut. When I know something is true, I act on it quickly. And it gives me the time to recover faster. When you make decisions faster, you can recover faster. So go F it up.
Similarly to Ashleigh and Demetrius, I think that where the mistake I made was taking too long to put my product in front of actual users. I think because I felt like as an engineer and having wrote my own code and built my own product, it was like my baby, and I wanted everything to be perfect because I didn't want to hear what people actually might have to say. But I think that, and there's a saying, I think it was by Reid Hoffman at LinkedIn, said, yeah, if you're not embarrassed by your beta product, then you've waited too long to put it out. And so I had to just be brave and just say, okay, I'm gonna put it out there and whatever, and get that feedback, because you can't improve unless you actually put your product in front of people, you actually talk to your end users, your customers. And so and actually was, in some ways, doing that was better than I anticipated. And some of the things that I thought were priorities or important features ended up not being, and other things were. So it actually changed my whole roadmap. And I just wished I had gotten to that point sooner, rather than wasting cycles on, oh, well, it needs to be perfect, or staying in my head about what I thought were the priorities. So I think that it's sort of like when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be vulnerable. And I think that always, because that's how you improve. It's just like, you just have to be, and you have to take that feedback, and it can be hard sometimes. And so, but I think that the sooner you open yourself up to that, the sooner you put things out there, you get that feedback, and then you can improve. Like I demoed did a pilot of my product at a student conference, and I realized that I hadn't upgraded one of my accounts from like the trial plan, and I had all these failures because I didn't scale. But I would never have found those bugs out if I hadn't at least tried to see, can my product scale into the hundreds of users at a single time? Like I hadn't done that yet, and if I had put that off, I would never have done that. You have to take those failures and those mistakes. You have to sort of fail forward and fail fast. And so I wish I had just done that sooner.
James, I love that you brought up feedback, and just the way that you kind of phrased that whole answer. Something that is so important to us at PowerToFly, and something we look at or look for during our own interview process. And one of my favorite questions, this is a little off script, but is, can you tell us about a time where you were given a piece of constructive feedback, and how did you handle that? And, how did you, move forward? So you just gave a really great example of that. And I think that happens a lot throughout the process. I'm wondering if Ashleigh and Demetrius, you were ever given a piece of constructive feedback, and how you handled that, and moved forward from that moment?
Yes, my constructive feedback has been consistently the same for a while, which means I haven't quite figured out how to finesse it yet, but it's that I move too fast. I blow past things, and I often don't allow time for people to come with me, right? And I just like bat, 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 bat. I've been compared to like a lightning bolt, which is like, we need to learn how to harness your energy to like illuminate a room versus zapping people, which is really important, because to be able to be successful as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, people have to come along willingly and want to come along and want to support you, right? And if they feel like they're in your dust, they're not going to want to be beside you.
The most interesting piece of constructive feedback I've gotten is something that it's been a transition, and that was, and it showed the transition and change in my mentality, and that was revolving around pitching your company and explaining your company. The funniest thing is, in the beginning, you can pitch, and if you get bad feedback, it's like, they don't get it, they're stupid, whatever. But then you start getting feedback like, okay, no, tweak this, change this, explain this better. Here's the thing. Your pitch deck that you worked on so diligently for these past 4 or 5 days, it sucks. Your graphic sucks, the design sucks. And it goes from taking it personally to, as you progress, you start looking for that. Like, okay, tell me, should I use a different font? Should I use a different color palette? And you don't become as hostile and dismissive. So I think the best constructive feedback I ever got was, quit being hostile and thinking everybody just hates you because they're saying no or they're criticizing you. Listen to what they're saying and how. Because if you can quiet your own voice down to listen to what people are saying, you'll hear so much that you can then act on and become better and better. And it's funny because this I directly attribute to StartOut and Growth Lab. Like, I literally had pretty much no success fundraising or doing anything else pitching prior to that. Since actually being in Growth Lab in the past I graduated like month and a half ago. Over the past 4 months, we've raised close to $1 million. We're probably going to cross $1 million by the end of June. So, and I directly attributed that to some of the same constructive feedback, because then you're able to start listening and tweaking. So, yeah.
I love it. Being open to that constructive feedback, which all of your examples just, demonstrated. It's amazing. And that's such a key piece of getting to that next step in the journey. And I love this question by Vishnu in the chat. They want to know, what's your greatest fear and how do you manage that fear? James, you want to kick us off?
So I'll take my story like 20 years back. So I graduated college in the height of the .com bust and had no work experience and was unemployed for a long time and lost my job like a lot of people, and was struggle for some time. And in my mind, that's always my fear, is that this will fail and then I won't be able to get a job because of what I went through that time. So I still have that sort of residual fear of that. And a mentor of mine reminded me that of my journey, how far I've come, and that you'll always be able to make money. You'll always be able to get a job. Like everything that I've done is not wasted. Like even if it doesn't work out, I can still do other things. I still have all of my career. I still have all those things. So I think just knowing that, and even with the bootstrapping lifestyle, or sort of like not having the same financial profile that I had when I was making money in tech, just working for big companies, that is always there if I want to go back to it. And I think that we always, and again, that's a lot of that is imposter syndrome too, that we think it's sort of like when you're going from like a trapeze to another, you have to let go of one rung and reach for the next one. I think it's that fear of letting go and saying, okay, well, I'll be fine no matter what happens. And again, the network, the community, the learning, all of that is of value. So should I move on to something else, that will all be there. And I remind myself of that. But there's always that fear that everything's going to fail and I'm not going to have any money. And the fact that I failed at something means I won't be able to get a job, which is not true, which I already know is not true. It's just those fears come back to you. And so it's I think that how I deal with it is just reminding myself and also keeping and maintaining your network too, because that's going to lead you to your next opportunity, whether it's your next startup or your next customer or your next opportunity. So as long as I'm out there being positive and doing things to further myself, then I'll be okay. I won't be in that situation that I was right out of college. But that's always in the back of my mind.
My greatest fear. I'm so glad Ashleigh mentioned the teenage girl that yammers in her ear, because my greatest fear is, and this is something that just goes along with imposter syndrome, goes along with being a founder, goes along with doing anything where you have somebody that pretty much exercises their faith in you. My greatest fear is failing, not for myself. Hell, I mean, honestly, I've been homeless. I've lost things before. For me, it's like, all right, whatever, I know I can make it. But I think all of us, when you get to a point that people believe in what you're doing, especially those you love and care for, you don't want to fail because you don't want to let them down, in a sense. But the voice that you have to ignore is your own. And it's like in Ashleigh's case, it's the teenage girl yammering in her ear. For me, it's the kid who dropped out of high school, the one, and it's always hard because your greatest fears will come from yourself. It'll come from your experiences, because that voice, that person, is the same one that knows all the little mess ups you made. It knows everything bad and stupid you've ever done, and they hold it against you and they yammer in your ear about it. So my greatest fear is that part of me winning. And so every day I fight with that part of it in one aspect or another. And I think that's something real that a lot of us founders go through, because, there's two halves to this. There's the whole, we got this, and then there's the private, do I really? And that voice will be eager to say, nah, you really don't. So you have to fight that. So my greatest fear is failing and letting other people down who have expressed so much belief and faith in what I'm doing. And so you get past it by taking little wins, be it a term sheet, a new client contract, a new meeting request, a new response to an email. Take all of those as a win. And you know what? Yeah, it helps with that fear a lot.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think on the upper level, it's definitely failure. But when I boil it down, what level of that or what part of failure? And I think for me, it's having my truth being denied, something that is like, this is real to me. This is true to me. And having someone be able to say, no, it's not. And second to that is the not good enoughs or the too much, right? Like those definitely go hand in hand for me. And same but different than Demetrius. I think for me, it hasn't been about fighting it. It's been about accepting it and understanding that she is a part of me. And how do I learn to accept that part of me and nurture that part of me? And because for me, fighting it made it louder for me personally. So I had to learn how to sit down with it and let that wave come and then say, thank you for your opinion, but it's not necessary right now. Or I understand that you're afraid, but we're going to do it anyway. Right. And really being able to talk and nurture and calm down that part of me that didn't want to be in the spotlight, doesn't want to have her truth on the website, doesn't want to have people looking at me or speaking on a panel. Right. And so accepting all of me and having practices around, you know, that positivity, like as Demetrius said, being able to take those things and put them in a special folder, which is like your smile folder, your happy folder, or whatever, which can be like positive emails or that term sheet or a note from your mom, or like things that are good, and putting them in one place. So when you need them and you can go back to them and remember that it's not all bad. It's not all hard. It just might be in that moment.
I'll just say really related to Ashleigh, your example about talking to that inner sort of saboteur and saying your opinion is like, you said your opinion and we're going to do this anyway. And I'm doing that right now with this trip to Portugal. That I can think of a million reasons not to go, and there's always a million reasons not to do something. And so it's important. It's important to acknowledge it because it's always going to be there. But to sort of like, I think that what's that saying? That courage is not sort of like absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. And so I try to maintain that too. That certain things are always going to be scary or always going to be intimidating, but you do them anyway. And I think that's real. That's what leadership. At least I feel like that's what true leadership is.
And you know, it's interesting. I just have to tack on. We talk about fear a lot, and we've all heard the cliche acronyms of fear. You know, false evidence appearing real, face everything, and run. All of those. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, it's a 4-letter word like a whole bunch of others. You deal with it the same way, and you know, all of us have our tactics. You know, I love the fact that Ashleigh can be so rational with hers and sit down and have a conversation. You know, and mine doesn't really respond well to that. So sometimes I got to shake them around a bit. But the end result is you do what you need to get past that. And, you know, and just like James said, there's 1,000 reasons not to do things. There's only one really good reason why you should, and that's usually the one you should listen to. You know, that's how you become an entrepreneur. That's how you become a founder. There's a million things. You could have stayed at I could have stayed at the safety net of Morgan Stanley, kept me dealing with other people's money. We all could have played it safe. There's a million reasons to do it. But there was one good reason for you to take this path and walk this path. And we listened to that voice then. We just need to learn to listen to it more often.
And I think that's the moment of greatness, right? Like that moment that you're referring to of like, you know, you hear all the stories of like what makes people great. And I think the true definition of greatness in my eyes is not like term sheets or like numbers in bank account. It's like the ability to get past that moment. It's like that 8 seconds of I'm going to do it anyway. Like I deserve more, or I want more, or whatever that is. Like it doesn't matter what's on the other side of that. Like that definition of success is different for everybody, but being able to surpass that fear for you and believing in yourself, like that's the moment of greatness.
Wonderful answers. And thank you, Vishnu, for this question. I couldn't have picked a better one to end us on. So I appreciate that. And I'm seeing the clock. I can't believe we have 1 minute left. So rapid fire, I want each of you to tell us, or tell the audience where they can find you, how they can follow your journey, what they can do to continue on this path and support you and your company. So I'm going to pass it to James first.
Yes, so my company is ConciergeBot. It's www.concierge.bot, and I'm James at concierge.bot. So please, happy to chat more, and yeah, we'd love to hear from people.
Ashleigh, you're next.
You can find us at auditmate.com. Follow our blog. I post all of our podcasts and press releases there, and LinkedIn is also a great place to follow us, AuditMate.
You can follow me at yourcollegecash.com. That's our website. Or you can email me, Demetrius at yourcollegecash.com. Also on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at the Startup Ronin. So feel free to reach out to me on social media and also on LinkedIn. This has been great.
Thank you all so much. Sam Maya is going to be posting all of these links into the chat so you can follow each of these incredible startup founders. And once again, thank you, each and every one of you. This was probably one of the best conversations I've gotten to moderate in PowerToFly Summit history. So thank you for being here, and thank you for everything that you do. I'm excited to follow you and your journey. And I'll pass it back over to Hunter.
Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause for our speakers? Oh my goodness. There was so much there about, startups, but also about life. Like I can just translate all of that into whatever I do, if I have a company or not. So thank you all so much.